Meeting order. Everybody please stand and say the pledge. Read the pledge.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the many blessings you've given us. Let us be mindful of our faults. Show us correction when we need it. Grant us patience and wisdom. Bless those who serve us. In His precious name we pray. Amen.
Everybody had a chance to review the claims payroll.
Yes.
Minutes
Yes, sir.
and corrections. No additions to claims.
No.
Have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Rick made a motion. Todd second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do you have that amendment? With the new CDC guidelines, they're changing. We're no longer treating it as COVID. It'll be treated as a common illness. And for employees, you'll be using their sick time. Have a motion to accept the new CDC guidelines.
So moved.
Todd made a motion.
Second.
Rick second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And that'll be as of today.
Second.
Okay. Lucy Benton.
Yep, Brenton. I've got some information sheets for each of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Doing great.
Better than I deserve, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so I'm not a veteran of these things. Should I stand here, stand back there?
Go ahead and sit at the table and talk
Okay.
into the microphone.
All right. I got a big mouth, you can probably hear me without that.
Right.
Okay. Ooh, that's very loud. So my name is Lucy Brennan. I've been in Washington County for about 3 years and moved down here with my husband and 10 children because I love the conservative values that are in Washington County, and I wanted to raise my children in a way that was, more natural and be able to have a farm instead of being stuck in the city. Along with raising my children that way is my concern, as you just mentioned today, the CDC guidelines, that our health and medical liberty is in danger. That there are organizations who, for profit, want to make sure that they can control our daily lives and make a profit for themselves. Things like mandatory vaccination, where those products are mandatorily purchased and then foisted upon an unsuspecting citizenry, and then all that money kind of goes up the funnel to politicians and to corporations. So the most recent threat that we have here in Indiana is something that, again, seems like a great idea, but it's a Trojan horse, and that is the Governor's Public Health Commission, known as Public Health 911. So I've given you each an information sheet from Hoosiers for Medical Liberty. I don't represent them, but I think they're an amazing 501c4 organization. So they're trying to do the right thing and alert Hoosiers to the hidden dangers of what's coming down. So the Governor's Public Health Commission was instituted in 2021 through an executive order, which I am never in favor of executive orders, by Governor Holcomb to address public health in Indiana. The commission first met in September of 2021, outlining key areas of public health, including emergency preparedness, governance and structure, funding, data and information integration, healthcare and health workforces, and childhood and adolescent health integration. Monthly meetings drive the goal to help develop regionalized, equitable, and sustainable legislative recommendations for public health to be presented during the 2023 session. Again, this all sounds great, right? We want to protect public health. But generally, public health efforts are considered altruistic in nature because the focus is to prevent illness, injury, and extend the lifespan. Unfortunately, as we've recently learned in the last 2.5 years through COVID, the guise of public health can be used to control and limit the freedoms granted by our Constitution. Not all of the recommendations that were offered by the Governor's Public Health Commission appear dangerous. In fact, they have a marketing program, public relations, if you will, that says that they want to improve emergency medical services and disaster preparedness, data portability, and removing barriers to care to meet the needs of the underserved and underprivileged, and of course, increase public health funding. On the face, this all sounds absolutely amazing. It sounds like Daddy Government is here to make sure that we're all taken care of and that it's equitable and sustainable. The problem is, like Benjamin Franklin said, that those who give up a little bit of they give up all of their for a little bit of security are going to lose both, and they deserve neither. So the specific threats that we're concerned with are centralization, first of all. Government power becomes top-down rather than bottom-up. The CDC makes recommendations, just like you adopted today. It passes that down to the state, and the state tells the county what to do. There's no diversity, no county input or accountability to citizens. I want those of you sitting here with me to be the ones that are involved at the local level. You're the county commissioners. It's your job to make sure that you stand between us and the state and federal governments to ensure the individual liberties of each of us living here in Washington County. It disconnects local accountability. Health commissioners' hands are tied because if they deviate from the centralized recommendations, they jeopardize their funding. So this is why masks were instituted, even though they're ineffective. This is why the lockdowns were instituted. It's absolutely crazy that Walmart stayed open, but our cafe across the street had to close down. It was an entire huge wealth transfer that took small mom and pop businesses that contributed to the community, that kept the money here in Washington County, and instead transferred all of that money to globalist corporations who lack accountability, and in fact act as bullies around the world, destroying the environment. Schools are a perfect example that's related to ESSR funding. If the school accepts ESSR funds, they were required to meet certain expectations to open. The emotional trauma that was inflicted upon even my children who attend West Washington schools is insane. The people who had children that were, maybe not as liberal as me and kept my children home rather than having them go to school wearing a mask and being afraid, that kind of emotional trauma, one of my friends who's a teacher said, we now have third graders that are really first graders. And so children have been severely affected by this. This is all coercive. It's taking away our individual liberties to live our lives here in Washington County. If we don't participate in the program as a county, the county is ineligible. We are not eligible for any Indiana Department of Health funding, including grants. So that means that we as a county would then have to fund those public health initiatives that we want, which I'm all in favor of actually, because with those funds from the state and federal level comes handcuffs. Data integrations increase data sharing between local, state, national, and even global organizations. Our state already has a vaccine registry, for example, and shares that information with the national registry. You are automatically enrolled, but you're never told that. So even though I opted out of CHIRP, I know that, even though I opted out when I showed up with my daughter for a sports physical, they came to me to ask why she wasn't vaccinated. She should not be in that database at all. I opted out. So even though we're told that we can opt out of these data collection, it's clear that they do that in spite of our protests. Schools, doctors' offices, and the State Department of Health have access to your vaccination record, your contact information, and address. I mean, really, how much information do you want the government to have access to? I want zero. The hidden threat of school clinics, decreasing the role of parent, more of your students' information exchanged and shared. I am a traditional mom, married 32 years with 10 kids. I want my children protected from the kind of medical tyranny that is literally putting a school system, now this is not happening in West Washington, I've talked with them, but there are people that would encourage my child to kill my grandchild. If I were in a different school system, and this is why we moved here, there are people who would transport my child to have my grandchild killed, and I wouldn't know anything about it. There are people that would put my child in chemicals like birth control or estrogen or testosterone, depending upon the cross-gender thing. So I'm here as a citizen to enlist your aid, to work as a partner with you, to make sure that we here in Washington County stand up to the juggernaut of the federal and state government and say, we will not allow our Washington County citizens to have handcuffs put upon them, to have masks forced upon them. We will not allow the federal or the state government to come in and say, you don't get your public health money unless and until you go along with our program, and that means putting Washington County citizens at risk. Thank you. Oh, do you want to ask me any questions? Do I have any time left? Or did I use it all?
I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Just one. You said the governor's public health commission. So as of right now, what you're saying is he's basically trying to do this through executive order. Is there anything, or have you spoken with any of our local legislators about your concerns? And I do share some of your concerns. Have you spoken to any of this? Is there legislation going through the state level referencing any of this? Or?
That is a great question. I'm so glad that you asked. It started with the executive orders, and of course, time after time after time, Holcomb, the rhino, locked us down and prevented all kinds of things from happening. But right now, it's a commission on public health. They're making recommendations for new laws. I don't know a specific bill that I can give you a number to, but I appreciate the suggestion, to take it to our local House and Senate representatives. Part of their plan is to have government-funded school clinics that offer screenings and care. That sounds great on the surface until it becomes coercive and tied to public funds. And that asks me, that makes me ask myself, who's going to have access to each of our children's records? Not everyone that is a pastor is a good person. Not everyone that's a politician or a teacher or anything. They can still be evil or they can still be good. Just the fact that they go into a certain job doesn't automatically make them trustworthy. So just because somebody is a teacher at my child's school doesn't mean that they should have access to that sort of private information about my child's health care. I'm concerned that they might provide vaccines. There are lawsuits in Los Angeles County right now because there is a pizza party that was given for children who would accept the COVID vaccine. So we had 13-year-olds who were offered a piece of pizza in exchange for a life-changing injection that we know now can affect their fertility and actually make them more susceptible to things like COVID and other autoimmune disorders. Are they going to try and offer contraception or abortion or hormones? Maybe not at West Washington, but I'm pretty active there. What if that could be happening at Salem or East? We just don't know. And so it's up to us to stand up individually and do that. So I will definitely, talk to our local legislators, and make sure that that we're fighting it here. I did have a question for you guys. Oh, very simple question. If the state dangles the carrot in front of you as county commissioners, would it be your intention to go ahead and accept that money even if you have to give up the rights of the individual citizens in this county?
We have no way of answering that, because when you say dangle a carrot, there's nothing in writing. So the only thing we can do, I appreciate you bringing all this to our attention, and we'll stay on top of it. And I think the main thing is to keep in touch with our state legislators, because they're the ones that ultimately would be responsible for this unless the governor decides to come up with some executive order. But
well, that's a really great question, because my understanding of constitutional law is that our county sheriff and our county commissioners, that we are the highest law in our county, and that we can kick out the state and federal governments when they breach and overreach, trying to take away our individual rights. Is that, that's my understanding.
Well, to a point, but we have very little wiggle room, actually. People get a misconception about counties, think we can do anything we want, but we have very little wiggle room. I might suggest maybe that you talk to someone at the health department, keep ask if they're aware. I'm sure they're aware of this, so I certainly appreciate you bringing this to our attention. We'll stay on top of it, and we do share a lot of your concerns, because none of us, and I think I can speak for all of us, are real big on regulations, so.
I'm glad to hear that. You know, they talk about keep Portland weird and keep Austin weird. I want to keep Washington County free. And if we won't stand for freedom and individual liberty in the Constitution ourselves in this county, how can we expect our state legislators or federal legislators who are busy signing away our rights for their money to do that? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick? How's Rick this morning?
All right, how about yourself?
Big flight.
Well, I'll continue on with what she said, the state telling us what to do. It's come, since August, it's time to make a decision about the signs we've discussed, and all of our appeals have fell on deaf ears from best I can tell. The deadline to have them installed is August 31st, so as far as ordering them, if we're going to try to stay compliant, we probably need to get that done. They say a 10 to 15 day lead time. I'll be amazed if we get them that fast. And the estimate's around $14,500.
Has the representative from Trey Hollingsworth, has he called you?
No, I know the reason about it.
I've never heard about it in the state or anything either.
I've talked to 3 different people at NDOT, and they all just say, it's from the federal level, there's nothing they can do, their hands are tied. And so it's just kind of beating a dead horse, I think.
I suggest we go ahead and buy it because we don't want to lose out on the.
Yeah, I don't agree with it, but
I agree.
I don't think that matters.
Could you wait another week or 10 days?
I think we've waited about all we can wait if we want to try to be compliant. Because August 31st is the deadline to have them up, and that's going to be really tight on the
Chance
schedule.
of losing your money.
Yeah, we've put it off about as long as we can. Because I have to get pictures of them installed and sent in.
Well, we're not the only county.
No, absolutely not. It's just, how hard do you want to play chicken is what it comes down to.
Make a motion to go ahead and purchase the signs to be compliant so we don't lose out.
And other than that, we're still spraying weeds and mowing, and just regular routine operations.
As I hate to, I will second that motion.
Lost some money one time. We don't want to do that again. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Thank you, Rick. That's good.
I think we got the Neil Brooks and the completed, that's correct.
So, how many more pieces of property we got to sell then?
9.
19.
Gary? Max?
Yep, I
I'll
do.
fall you under, we're not prepared for you, but at the same time, I've got an opening here for you. Would you like to come forward?
Do you want me to come up?
No.
What I have is concern over the zoning board's citizen membership requirements. If, none of the on the board, maybe back when Tom Cyphers, when they first started planning and zoning, they had Terry McNeely, another member on the board, and a citizen come up to him and referred to 216, which is the requirements so that they live or reside within the jurisdiction of the board. And at that time, Tom removed Terry McNeely and another member to replace him so they wouldn't lose out on that $60,000 grant money for the comprehensive plan when they first started off. That's what got me looking at the membership requirements here. After talking to Ben Bowling, we found out that Mark Hartman lived in the 2 Mile Fringe, which according to what the understanding was, you can't have members outside the jurisdictional limits of the board. Now, I brought this to the attention of the zoning board, and John said that, well, because you have blacktop there, you have jurisdiction there. But that's not what I found in the planning and zoning laws here, what it says for the stipulations. And also, it brought up the 36-7-4-211, which says area. The board, I'll read the statement here on chapter 1, but it's for area board only, and we're an advisory board in Washington County. And because we are an advisory board, we have different stipulations we have to fall under. And one of them is,
Excuse me just a second, Max. Where did you find that at?
this is the Indiana Planning and Zoning Guide.
Where did you find that? Where advisory or?
We are advisory. If you look on page 2, there's a map. It shows we're one of 51 counties in Indiana that is an advisory board. An area board has to have a municipality and the county combined together to become an advisory board. There's like 30 counties in the state that have that requirement, that meet that standard. And there's only one metro, which is in Indianapolis. But all this book here speaks of all 3 boards. If it doesn't specify which one it applies to all boards, is what it said with I've got all the codes that it does specify with. I've got out of sequence on you, but I'm not. I'll get to the gist. Let me start off with what chapter 1, page 1, 1.1, down at the bottom of it says, throughout IC 36-7-4, a reader will note the preceding terms, advisory, area, and metro, following the statutory language which applies to that type of planning commission. In cases where there is no heading, the section applies to all planning commissions. 211 starts off with area. It only applies to area where it allows you to change board membership. So we can't change the board membership because we are an advisory board. Therefore, we have to comply with all these other sections that are in the chapter. I'll read one more thing, 1.2 on page 1. Advisory planning commissions can serve cities, towns, and counties. Municipal advisory planning commissions serve the area within their corporate limits, and in some cases are allowed planning jurisdiction over contiguous unincorporated territory up to 2 miles outside the corporate limits. Now here comes the county part. County advisory planning commissions serve the unincorporated territory within the county, excluding any extraterritorial jurisdiction claimed by municipalities. That means we do not have the city of Salem's, the 2 mile fringe, the county cannot control what they claim. They didn't take all the 2 mile fringe, if you look at it as a radius or an oval, but the areas that they squared off and left out to the county has to control, has to take responsibility of it, but only that. And when you get further down the end of the pages, 208 says you can have, we've set up a 5-member citizen board and no more than 3 can be the same political party. And what we've got on the record, we've got 2 Democrats, but both of which have, in the last 2 election cycles, have voted Republican primaries, declaring themselves the Republican Party. That's my guess for that. It's not been, and then that's on 208. And 216, the members must be a resident of the jurisdictional area of the planning commission. And that's where we don't have jurisdiction in the 2 mile fringe. And also, at least the majority of the total members of the citizen must, appointed to the planning commission, must reside within the jurisdictional limits. You can live in a 2 mile fringe so long as you own property out in the county, but you gotta have at least 3 members there. This other section, let me read that. The members must be resident of the jurisdictional area of the planning commission. The member may also be required by statute to reside within the unincorporated area of the jurisdictional area of the planning commission. And 2, the member must be a resident of the county and also be an owner of real property located in whole or in part within the jurisdiction area of the planning commission. The member may be required by statute to own real property within the unincorporated area of the jurisdictional area of the planning commission. So at least 3 members have to live within the area, but all members have to own or reside in the area. And then that's just what I was getting after. And also, on 218 requires, it's a four-year term for the board members, and then down at C, under the advisory, there's staggered membership when they first were appointed. One for 1 year, one for 2 years, one for 3 years, and two for 4 years. So that when they come up at the end of these terms, they should be staggered according to the state's, or according to the county's paperwork of who appointed these boards and when their terms end up at, the limits of their terms. I'm just asking that we try to get back in compliance with what the state has for the board member requirements. Because this board can become a taxing agent. It's important that you do follow the state guidelines. It's not right now, but it has the legal authority to do so.
Justin, can I ask you to research?
Sure.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and look into it and see what needs to be done to bring us into compliance. Now also, Pike County actually abolished the board. So it is possible to eliminate the board altogether if that's what you want to do. But I'm just asking you to be in compliance if you're writing ordinances that's going to affect the people in the county and have the authority to actually fine people for non-compliance. That the board needs to be legal and within state statutes during the time these ordinances are being written, so there's due process for the people who reside within the jurisdictional limits to participate.
Yeah, I think, I'll look into it.
That's all I'm asking for, that it
Sure.
be looked into and that we can come back into compliance. But Tom, in the beginning of time, he was challenged on this and he had to change membership to keep from losing $60,000.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware that we had members that wasn't being closely monitored. I know it's maybe different than any other board you have in the entire county, or you have weed boards and all kinds of other boards, but the ones that start requiring political party affiliations, which are hard to track because like a lot of Democrats change parties this cycle. But, and in the case I was looking at there's been two election cycles, and when you go get your ballot, you have to declare that you're going to vote for more of that party when you vote in the primary, is my understanding when I went to ask for a ballot. So that's party affiliation unless the state has some other standard to go by. And the ownership of the property, we brought that off the county's website, off their map. That's all we had to, as a citizen, you may have something better than what the county's updated for us, but this is the best I had to go with.
Yeah, I don't think it's a simple issue for sure, but thanks for bringing it.
Well, I'm hoping it can be resolved that we meet the standards set forth. But the state legislature went through there's tons and tons of stuff in here, and you read it and you got to read it backwards, and just like missing out on the area part, there's some sections that apply to this and that, and you'll get into manufactured housing and what the state has to say on it, and
I know.
not everything's here, but there's a lot of stuff, and it's a lot to keep track of, but I'd like to look into this particular section. I do have copies of what I printed off with the code of domiciling, so that you can refer back to it, say, oh, you're misrepresenting this or misunderstanding that. Anyway, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of appointments that these guys make, and sometimes it's hard to even find people to serve in those roles.
For Salem's board, we got 2 appointments as well, and that's keeping track of them, and they're on a staggered basis as well. And once it gets lost in space, it's hard to come back and catch it. If it wasn't on in the proper sequence 6 years ago, it stayed out of sequence every year.
I think this was set up in 2008 or 2009 maybe, and the intent is clearly to comply with the state statute. So I'll take a look at it and see if we can maybe get up to speed.
Good enough. Oh yeah, that's just where it is, but once it gets lost, and as far as down the road, to be challenged on whether due process was given and all the other stuff, and Because eventually you're gonna write stuff not everybody's gonna agree with, and when they get turned down, they don't need to be saying, well, why should I comply if you refuse to comply?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, we need to recess till 6 PM tonight for the ARC meeting.